We live in an age where every problem becomes political, yet genuine politics seems to have vanished entirely. This is perhaps the greatest paradox of our time. In the very moment when everything is politicized, politics itself has ceased to exist. What we call politics today, the endless cycles of governance, administration, and the management of human behavior, has nothing whatsoever to do with what I understand as political life. Politics, you see, is not about ruling over people. It is not about implementing policies or managing society like a vast household. Politics emerges only when people come together as equals to act in concert, to begin something entirely new in the world. The moment we confuse politics with government, we lose the very essence of what makes us human, our capacity to transcend the given conditions of our existence through collective action. This confusion has cost us dearly. We have exchanged the unpredictable richness of political life for the false security of administrative efficiency. We have traded the public realm, where we appear before others as distinct individuals, for the comforting privacy of our managed existence. Today, I want to recover what we have lost and show you why understanding the true nature of politics is not merely an academic exercise, but a matter of preserving our humanity itself. Chapter 1: The Fundamental Misunderstanding. For decades now, I have watched as the word politics has been drained of its essential meaning. What people today call politics is really administration, the management of things and the organization of people's behavior to achieve predetermined ends. This is not politics, this is rulership. And rulership is precisely the opposite of political life. Politics begins where government ends. Government concerns itself with the necessary functions of society, maintaining order, ensuring security, managing resources, enforcing laws. These are important activities, but they are not political. They are what the Greeks called despotic activities, activities appropriate to the household, where a master rules over servants and manages affairs according to necessity. True politics emerges only when equals come together in a public space to act and speak, not to be ruled or to rule. Politics is what happens when people create something new together, when they transcend their private interests and reveal who they are through words and deeds. This revelation of identity, this showing of who one is rather than what one is, can only occur among peers, never between ruler and ruled. The confusion between politics and government has ancient roots, but it has become particularly acute in the modern age. We have forgotten that political action is not about achieving predetermined goals, but about beginning processes whose outcomes cannot be foreseen. When people act politically, they set in motion chains of events that take on a life of their own, creating possibilities that no single individual could have planned or controlled. This is why I insist that politics is fundamentally about natality, our capacity to begin something new. Every time people come together to act in concert, they create the possibility for something unprecedented to emerge in the world. This is the miracle of politics, not that we can control outcomes, but that we can initiate processes that transcend our individual limitations and create a common world that outlasts our individual lives. Chapter 2: Power emerges between people, not over them. Here lies perhaps the most radical insight about political life. Power is not something one person wields over another, but something that springs up between people when they act together. The moment we think of power as a possession that can be grabbed, stored, or transferred, we have already left the realm of politics and entered the realm of violence. I learned this truth not from books, but from experience, from watching how totalitarian regimes systematically destroyed every space where people could come together spontaneously. The Nazis and the Stalinists understood something that many democratic theorists miss: that genuine political power represents a mortal threat to all forms of domination because it demonstrates that people do not need to be ruled to organize their common life. Power exists only as long as people act together. It disappears the moment they disperse. Think of a spontaneous demonstration where people suddenly find themselves united in action. In those moments, tremendous power manifests. Not the power of any individual leader, but the power that emerges from their acting in concert. This power cannot be stored away for future use. It exists only in the present moment of collective action. Violence, by contrast, is instrumental. It is the tool that individuals or groups use when they lack the power that comes from acting with others. Violence can destroy power, but it can never create it. When governments resort to violence to maintain their authority, they reveal that their power has already evaporated. Violence is what remains when politics has failed. This distinction illuminates why modern states often feel so impotent despite their enormous capacity for violence. They possess all the instruments of coercion, yet they cannot generate the power that would make coercion unnecessary. They can force compliance, but they cannot inspire the kind of spontaneous support that emerges when people freely choose to act together. The American Revolution exemplified this kind of genuine political power. The revolutionaries did not simply seize control of existing institutions. They created new public spaces where people could come together as equals to deliberate about their common concerns. The power of the revolution lay not in the military defeat of the British, but in this creation of new political institutions that allowed for ongoing collective action. Chapter 3: Why we confuse politics with problem solving. Modern people have become so accustomed to thinking of politics as problem solving that we can barely imagine what political life might look like if it were not organized around the imperative to fix things. Yet this instrumental view of politics as a means to achieve social or economic ends, represents a fundamental departure from what politics has always been about. Consider your own experience for a moment. When you think about politics, do you immediately think about problems that need solving, inequality that needs addressing, conflicts that need resolution, policies that need implementation? If so, you're thinking like a social scientist or a government administrator, not like a political actor. Politics is not about solving problems. It is about creating a world where people can appear before one another in their full humanity. When people gather to deliberate about their common concerns, they are not primarily trying to reach optimal solutions to technical questions. They are creating and maintaining the public realm itself, the space where human excellence can appear and where the stories of human lives can unfold. This confusion between politics and problem solving has led us to evaluate political institutions by their efficiency rather than by their capacity to preserve and enhance human plurality. We ask whether our political systems can deliver the goods rather than whether they allow people to experience themselves as free agents capable of acting together to create something new. The result is that we have inadvertently created what I call the social realm, a hybrid space that is neither genuinely public nor genuinely private. In this social realm, we treat political questions as if they were household management problems writ large. We approach politics as if we were running a giant household where the goal is to ensure that everyone's needs are met efficiently. But humans are not just creatures of need who require management. We are also creatures of action who require spaces where we can transcend our biological and social conditioning. When politics becomes merely social policy, we lose touch with our capacity for genuine political action, our ability to break free from the cycle of behavioral predictability and begin something genuinely new. The irony is that by treating politics as problem solving, we create more problems than we solve. When people cannot experience themselves as political actors, when they are reduced to voters who choose between prepackaged alternatives or citizens who petition authorities for redress, they begin to lose their sense of agency altogether. The result is the kind of political apathy and resentment that characterizes so much of contemporary life. Chapter 4: The Public Realm, where we become who we are. The The public realm is not simply a physical space or an institutional arrangement. It is a dimension of human experience that emerges whenever people come together to act and speak in each other's presence. It is where we transcend our private existence and reveal ourselves as distinct individuals, while simultaneously creating a common world that can outlast our individual lives. In my years of exile, I came to understand how precious and fragile this public realm really is. When people lose their place in a common world, when they become stateless, as I was for many years, they discover that private life alone cannot sustain human dignity. We need the recognition that comes from appearing before others, the sense of reality that comes from sharing a world with people who can remember our words and witness our deeds. The public realm is where we become who we are through what we say and do in the presence of others. This is different from what we are, our social roles, our psychological characteristics, our private identities. Who we are emerges only in action and speech, and it can emerge only before others who can grasp and remember the unique story of our lives. This is why the destruction of public spaces is so devastating to human dignity. When people are confined to private life, when they interact with others only as producers and consumers, or as members of the same group or class, they lose access to the realm where genuine human excellence can appear. They become, in effect, worldless, cut off from the common reality that makes meaningful action possible. The modern age has witnessed a systematic shrinkage of the public realm and a corresponding expansion of both the private sphere and what I call the social sphere. We have created a culture of intimacy that seeks to bring private concerns into public view while simultaneously developing massive bureaucratic systems that treat public concerns as matters of administrative expertise. The result is that people today often feel simultaneously overexposed and invisible. Their private lives are subject to constant scrutiny and management, yet they have few opportunities to appear before others as political actors capable of surprising themselves and others through their words and deeds. They become, paradoxically, both totally visible as data points and completely invisible as unique individuals. Recovering the public realm requires more than reforming our political institutions. Though such reform may be necessary, it requires remembering that we are not just private persons with interests to protect or social beings with needs to satisfy. We are also political beings with a capacity for action that can transcend our given circumstances and create new possibilities for human life. This capacity for political action is what I call natality, our ability to begin something new. Every human birth represents the arrival of someone who can potentially transform the world through their unique presence and action. Politics is the realm where this transformative potential can be actualized. Chapter 5: The Danger of Thoughtlessness in Public Life. During the Eichmann trial in Jerusalem, I confronted a phenomenon that continues to haunt our political life: the terrifying power of thoughtlessness. Here was a man who participated in one of history's greatest crimes, yet who seemed incapable of thinking about what he was doing. This was not the radical evil of a monster, but something far more disturbing: the banality of evil performed by someone who simply refused to think. This experience taught me that the capacity for thinking is not an intellectual luxury, but a political necessity. When people stop thinking, when they become content to follow rules, obey orders, and repeat cliches without examining their meaning, they become capable of participating in the destruction of the very world they inhabit. Thinking, as I understand it, is not the same as intelligence or knowledge. Many highly intelligent and knowledgeable people are thoughtless in the sense that matters most. They do not pause to consider the implications of their actions or examine the assumptions that guide their behavior. Thinking is the activity by which we interrupt the flow of automatic responses and create space for genuine choice. Ask yourself, how often do you pause to think about what you are really doing when you participate in political life? Not just whether your actions will achieve their intended results. but whether they preserve or destroy the conditions that make meaningful political action possible. This kind of thinking cannot be delegated to experts or representatives. It is something each person must do for themselves. The absence of thinking has become particularly dangerous in our age of mass society and technological complexity. When people feel overwhelmed by the pace of change and the complexity of modern life, they often retreat into thoughtlessness as a form of self-protection. They delegate their thinking to authorities, follow ideological formulas, or simply focus on their private concerns while ignoring the public world. But thoughtlessness is not a private matter. When enough people stop thinking, they create conditions that make political life impossible. They become susceptible to manipulation by demagogues who offer simple answers to complex questions. They lose the capacity to distinguish between truth and falsehood, between genuine political action and mere behavior. The remedy for thoughtlessness is not more information or better education in the conventional sense. It is the cultivation of the habit of thinking, the practice of stopping to consider what we are doing and why. This requires what I call thinking without banisters, the willingness to examine each situation afresh rather than relying on pre-existing formulas or ideologies. Thinking is inherently solitary, but it has profound political implications. When people think, they become unpredictable. They cannot be counted on to behave according to type or to follow orders without question. They become capable of saying no when everyone else is saying yes, and of recognizing possibilities that others have overlooked. Chapter 6, Judgment. The political faculty we've forgotten. If thinking creates the space for genuine choice, judgment is the faculty by which we navigate that space. Judgment is what allows us to distinguish between better and worse, appropriate and inappropriate, beautiful and ugly, without relying on universal rules that can be applied mechanically. It is, perhaps, the most distinctly political of all human faculties. Judgment emerges not from following rules, but from what Kant called enlarged thinking, the ability to consider how things appear from multiple perspectives. When we judge politically, we do not simply ask what serves our private interests or what conforms to abstract principles. We ask what preserves and enhances the common world that we share with others. This kind of judgment cannot be taught in the way that technical skills can be taught. It develops through practice, through the experience of deliberating with others about matters of common concern. It requires what the Greeks called political wisdom or prudence, the ability to navigate particular situations without the security of universal guidelines. The decline of judgment in public life is closely connected to our tendency to treat political questions as if they were technical problems with correct solutions. When we assume that political issues can be resolved through expertise rather than through the exchange of opinions among equals, we undermine the very conditions that allow judgment to develop and flourish. Consider how differently we might approach contemporary political controversies if we understood them as opportunities to exercise and develop our capacity for judgment rather than as problems to be solved by experts. Instead of seeking the one correct policy, we would focus on creating conditions for ongoing deliberation among people who hold different perspectives. Judgment is what allows us to appreciate the unique qualities of particular people, situations, and actions. It is the faculty by which we recognize political excellence when we see it, even when we cannot define it in advance. Without judgment, we become vulnerable to false appeals and unable to distinguish between authentic political leadership and mere demagoguery. The spectator plays a crucial role in the development of political judgment. Those who witness political action, who observe, remember, and evaluate the words and deeds of political actors, contribute to the creation of the common world by determining which actions deserve to be remembered and which deserve to be forgotten. This is why I have always insisted that thinking and judging are not solitary activities that take place in isolation from the world, but worldly activities that contribute to the preservation and renewal of the common realm. When we think and judge well, we help create the conditions in which others can act and reveal themselves in their full humanity. Chapter 7. Our capacity for new beginnings. Despite all the dark tendencies of our age, the decline of public life, the confusion of politics with administration, the spread of thoughtlessness, I remain fundamentally hopeful about human possibilities. This hope is not based on optimism about historical progress or faith in human goodness, but on something more basic, our inalienable capacity for beginning something new. Every human birth represents the arrival of someone who can potentially transform the world. This is what I mean by natality, the fact that we are all newcomers in a world that existed before us and will continue after us. Yet each of us has the capacity to interrupt the chain of automatic responses and initiate something unprecedented. This capacity for new beginnings is not limited to exceptional individuals or revolutionary moments. It manifests whenever people come together to act in concert, whenever they create new institutions or practices, whenever they refuse to accept that things must remain as they are. The power of beginning lies not in the ability to control outcomes, but in the ability to set processes in motion that take on a life of their own. Political action, properly understood, is always about beginning. When people act politically, they do not simply implement pre-existing plans or follow predetermined scripts. They create the possibility for something genuinely new to emerge in the world. This is why political action is inherently unpredictable and why attempts to make politics scientific always fail to capture its essential character. The capacity for new beginnings is what makes politics possible even under the most adverse circumstances. Even in totalitarian societies, even in situations where all formal political institutions have been destroyed, people retain the ability to come together and act in ways that transcend their immediate circumstances. This is the miracle of politics, not that we can achieve our goals, but that we can transcend the apparent limits of our situation. You possess this capacity for political action, whether you recognize it or not. Every time you choose to engage with others about matters of common concern, every time you refuse to treat political questions as merely private preferences, every time you act in ways that create new possibilities for human interaction, you exercise your natality. The challenge of our time is not to solve political problems once and for all, but to preserve and renew the conditions that make ongoing political action possible. This requires institutions that can channel and preserve the power that emerges when people act together. It requires educational practices that cultivate the capacity for thinking and judgment. Most importantly, it requires a culture that honors the unpredictable excellence that emerges when people reveal themselves through words and deeds. The future of politics depends not on finding the right policies or electing the right leaders, but on remembering what politics really is: the distinctly human activity through which we create and sustain a common world that transcends our individual lives. This world exists only as long as people continue to care for it, to renew it through their actions, and to pass it on to future generations. This is our responsibility and our opportunity: to act in ways that preserve the possibility of politics for those who come after us. In doing so, we fulfill our essential nature as political beings and contribute to the ongoing human project of creating a world worthy of our dignity as free and equal actors. Conclusion: politics is not about governing people. It is about people governing themselves through their capacity to act together as equals. This distinction matters more than ever in an age when authentic political life is disappearing beneath the weight of administrative management and social engineering. When we recover the true meaning of politics, we discover that we are not condemned to be merely voters, consumers, or clients of government services. We are potential political actors capable of creating new possibilities through our words and deeds. The public realm awaits our renewal. The choice before us is stark. We can continue to confuse politics with problem solving and gradually lose our capacity for genuine political action. Or we can reclaim our birthright as political beings capable of beginning something new in the world. Our capacity for natality, for beginning afresh, remains intact despite all attempts to reduce us to predictable behavior patterns. Politics lives wherever people gather to act and speak together as equals, wherever they refuse to accept that the present arrangement of things is the only possible one. The world needs your political action, not your compliance. Begin where you are, with others who share your concern for preserving the common world we inhabit together.